Hello, and welcome to this, the second of the core skills lectures regarding pronunciation. For those of you who joined me last week, I just wanted to start by reminding you that there was a small piece of homework that only required you to join, click on a link at YouTube for a poem by Dr. Jared Knowles Trinity called The Chaos. It's quite a well-known poem in English teaching circles. And regarding spelling and pronunciation, I think it's a really interesting thing to watch. So if you did manage to see that, well done. If you haven't yet managed to watch that video, please do so. It is, as I say, very interesting. So this week, we're moving on to a new topic. But before we do that, I just wanted to follow up on something that occurred during the week. A number of people continued to write in about words that they were confused about spelling and pronunciation. And it occurred to me that one thing that really stands out in English is the disparity between the way that a place name is spelled and the way that you would actually pronounce that place name. So here are a few quite well-known examples. The first being Leicester. L-E-I-C-E-S-T-E-R spells Leicester, strangely. That town is in the Midlands of England, and they were the Premier League champions last year. But L-E-I-C-E-S-T-E-R strangely spells Leicester. Capital city of the country I was born in is London. It is not London. Okay, no matter what it looks like, L-O-N-D-O-N, it is not O-O, it is A-E, London, London, all right? Sydney, Sydney, it's not Sydney, it is Sydney, E-E, Sydney. Whatever you might want to say, it is a name, and it is the name of a place as well. Sydney, beautiful city, and Melbourne. Melbourne, it is not Melbourne, like the Bourne identity, the Bourne legacy, the Bourne God knows what. It is Melbourne, Bun, all right? So you don't have to exaggerate on the O-U-R-N-E because people will look at you very strangely if you do. Boston, like London, at least here, you've got one letter O making an O sound, Boston, but it is the schwa in the second position, Boston. All right, although people in Boston don't say Boston, they got a funny accent. Greenwich, Greenwich, okay, Greenwich in London, Greenwich in New York, Greenwich Mean Time, the Greenwich Meridian. It is not Greenwich, okay, it is not a green wicked woman on a broomstick. It is Greenwich, Greenwich, all right? Just remember that when you see it next time. There are numerous examples of this, and what you will find is that there are many, many examples of places that you'll turn up to or places you'll see on the map, or you might have an English teacher or an American teacher, and they come from a town that you just couldn't pronounce. That's not unusual, and it's not, don't be embarrassed, we have to do it as well sometimes, to say to somebody, I'm sorry, how do you pronounce that, all right? Just because there is frequently that lack of connection between what you have read and then what you actually have to say. So today's topic, moving on, is word stress and emphasis. Okay, now word stress and emphasis are really very interesting because again, there's divergence about it, but there are certain rules that we can share with you about when you look at a word, how do you know where the emphasis of the word is? All right, so we're going to break that down a little bit today. So for the next half hour, strap yourselves in and enjoy the ride. First, we'll start with a pop quiz. Where is the emphasis in this word? Okay, so the word's going to appear on the screen. I will not say it, otherwise I'll give the game away. Here is the word R-E-C-O-R-D. R-E-C-O-R-D. Now, you may legitimately be asking, am I referring to the object on the left or the action on the right? This is relevant. Is it a noun or is it a verb? The word R-E-C-O-R-D can be both. So when I ask you to spell that word and tell me where the emphasis is, how do I know if it's a noun or a verb? Does it make any difference if I say record or record? It does. It does make a difference. So which is which? Which one is a noun and which one is a verb? When the emphasis is on the first syllable, record, it's a noun. Okay? So those large pieces of vinyl that people may or may not be familiar with is a record. The Guinness Book of World Records, he broke the world record. Record is a noun, emphasis on the first syllable, but record on the second syllable, to record your voice. I am recording this video. Record is a verb. All right? Here are a bunch of other examples. Now, on the left, I'm putting the verbs. Export, export, import, refund, research, discount, permit, conflict, contest, escort, survey. All right? Export, import, and so on. When the emphasis is on the second syllable, it's the verb. And when it's on the first syllable, it's a noun. Export, import, refund, research, discount, permit, conflict, contest, escort, and survey. All right, so to survey and a survey, to permit and a permit. The little piece of paper that the government will give you is a permit. They are permitting you to do something with a permit. All right? This is a rule in English. All right? This is a rule in English. When the emphasis is on the second syllable, the word is a verb. Just remember, we are going to be referring to parts of speech in all of these workshops. The ones that I do and the ones that my colleagues do. We need you to understand that parts of speech are nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and so on. Here, the two most important, I suppose, parts of speech, nouns and verbs. Noun is a name of a place, person, or thing. A verb is a doing word. If we refer to these things, it's important that you know what we're talking about rather than glazing over like we're talking a language that you don't understand. Noun, verb, object, a doing word, all right? The emphasis on the second syllable, it's a verb. So on the first syllable, it's a noun. So let's go a bit deeper into this. What is a syllable? A syllable, simply put, is a unit of sound. Okay? A syllable is a unit of sound. What does that mean? It means that the number of syllables in any word is equal to the number of vowel sounds. Now, remember last week, we talked about the difference between the vowels that we write, A, E, I, O, U, and then the vowel sounds. And the vowel sounds could be short, A, E, I, O, A, U. They could be long, A, E, I, O, and there are diphthongs. Diphthongs aren't vowels. However, for the sake of this, we're going to put them collectively as vowel sounds, because you'll see when you break down a word into syllables, a vowel sound or a diphthong sound is a unique sound, and that belongs in its own individual syllable. So let's look at these three words here. We've got three words that you probably should know. I won't say them at this point, but they are multi-syllable words. All right. Now let's break these three multi-syllable words down into their constituent syllables and vowel sounds. University. 4 syllables? 5 syllables? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 syllables. University. University. Educational. Okay? Educational. And then escalator. So I got 2 5-syllable words and 1 4-syllable word. Now at this point, we're not worrying about word stress and emphasis. We're just breaking down the word. The more able you are to break down words into their constituent sounds, probably the better it will be for you to remember these words in the future. When you are acquiring new vocabulary, there are a number of steps we will go into later on in this webinar, in this lecture. But breaking the word down and demystifying it is going to help you a great deal, partly because it will help you solidify in your mind the sounds that you need to be making when you're saying the word, but also will help you remember it in the future. The more you work on new vocabulary, the more likely it is to actually stay in your head. Okay? Now, you remember that last week I started talking about those weird symbols called phonemes, okay? Those squiggly lines and so on. Okay, we're going to be doing those again this week. It's important, but look at this. Those three words made into the squiggly line phonemes look like this. Okay, some of the symbols will be familiar to you already from last week. Some of them you may be familiar with. Some of them make absolute sense. So the letter K, of course, is not a K, it's a K sound, so a hard K, as in escalator, for example. All right? And then others may seem a bit strange. You might ask, well, why is there a letter J in front of university? Well, we'll get there, but don't worry too much about that at this point. So when you open a dictionary or when you look it up online and it breaks it down into its sounds, the phonemes would look just like that. So how do we know where the emphasis is in each of these words? Okay, what rule do we have? Well, let's have a look. Here we are again. We've got these words, 5 syllables, 4 syllables. Where do you think the emphasis is in each one? Third syllable in the first word, university, university. Third syllable again in the second word, educational, educational. Now you'll notice K, A, that's a diphthong. That's not a pure vowel. Okay, but you get the idea. The vowel sound or the diphthong sound, that's a separate syllable. Educational. And the last one, first syllable, escalator, escalator. Okay, so the emphasis on the first syllable. And again, you do have in lay, L-A, lay, you have a diphthong sound once again, escalator, escalator. There we are again with the squiggly lines. So here, what I've done is I've put the emphasized syllable in red. So ver, K, and S. Ver, as in university, K as educational, and S as in escalator. Now, when you see these normally written, they don't change the colors. What do they do? What do they do to signify when you're looking at these phonemes? What do they do to make it clear what the emphasized phoneme is? How do I know when I look at a new word that I've never seen before if it's escalator, 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 or escalator? Okay, if I'm just looking at the phonetics with nothing else, I don't know. If I'm just looking at the word and I've got no context, I don't know. So I'm guessing there are 4 syllables. There are 4 possible places where that word might be emphasized. Well, we help you. Okay, if you've heard it before, you may know. If you've never heard the word before, how do you know? Well, look at this. Okay, that tiny little mark at the beginning, you will always see that just in front of the emphasized syllable. So the stress in the word escalator is immediately after that little symbol, escalator. All right? You'll always see that. That is absolutely standard practice. When you're writing, now remember, I said you don't need to worry necessarily about learning all of these symbols. It's good to be familiar with them. You don't necessarily have to learn them. When you're committing new vocabulary to memory, what you can be doing is exactly what I've done here. You've got 2 possibilities. One is that you circle or somehow highlight the emphasized stressed syllable, in this case ES as in escalator, and then put in the dashes to signify where the syllable breaks are, or just write it down yourself and put in the slashes, escalator. All right, so you've got 3 slashes breaking up those syllables. Like I said before, if you actually write, and when I say write, I don't mean type. I think writing is a more meaningful thing to do. You're much more likely to remember things that you have written down by hand than typed onto a computer. Nevertheless, if you have to do one of them, write it. If you can't write, that's fine, then type. But going through the process of actually writing out a word that you've learned, the chances of you committing that to memory are greatly increased. So learning new vocabulary, do what I'm suggesting here, write the word out, put in the slashes for where the syllables are, and then highlight, circle, whatever, underline where you think, or where you know, of course, where the stress of that word is. All right? Another pop quiz for you. Look at these words. Okay, now the first task I want you to do is exactly what I just said. I want you to identify where the syllables are in these 6 words. Now you'll notice I've kind of got 3 pairs of words. I won't say them yet, just to make you do some thinking for yourselves first. But you've got these 6 words, break them down into their syllables. All right, I'll give you a minute to do that, and then we'll move on. Okay, let's have a look then. What have we got here? Biology. Biological. History. Historic. Submarine. Submariner. Okay, so that is where you put the breaks between each of the different syllables. Now, a couple of interesting things. Is it biological or biological? Can you hear that? Some people might say, well, why can't I have bi-ol-o-gi? To me, the lo is an integral sound. It's not biological, it's biological. All right, that's how I break it down. Similarly, when it comes to double letters, okay, summer, I would write S-U-M-M-E-R, summer, summer. Some people might prefer to put sa, but again, I'm not going to argue the toss on this one. It's not fundamental. The important thing is that you've got the vowel sound or the diphthong sound in different sections of the word. All right? Now, I hope you realize what I'm going to ask you next. You've broken down the words into their syllables. Where's the emphasis in each one? Circle it, underline it, decide where the emphasis rests in each of these 6 words. Okay, what you might find, I certainly do find this, if I say the word out loud and I can hear myself saying it, it does help. Again, each to his own or her own, you decide how you want to do that. If I read it aloud, I can hear my voice and I can actually think most of the time that doesn't sound right, or that sounds right. Here we are. Biology, biological, history, historic, submarine, submariner. I think the last one's probably the trickiest. Why have I grouped these words into pairs? Notice the shift in emphasis. When I build the word, the emphasis changes. Biology becomes biological, history becomes historic, submarine becomes submariner. All right, submariner, by the way, is the person who drives the submarine, if I can say that. So that happens a lot. When we build words, the word emphasis changes. Be very aware of that. Building words, word emphasis can move, and it happens a lot. Okay? Other languages, I refer to Portuguese because it's my second language. They have accents, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And there are rules, but very rigid, clear rules that children are taught at school for years and years and years about where words are stressed and where words are emphasized. Okay? So a few examples from Portuguese: biológico, história, ênfase, and horrível. In each of these words, where you've got the accent or the circumflex, that is where the emphasis is. We have nothing like that in English. I'm very sorry about that. We don't have it. We don't. So we don't have accents, we don't have circumflexes or anything like that. You have to rely on your knowledge and experience to work out where the emphasis ought to be. Or with place names, ask people, where is it? How do I pronounce this? What is this word? It's insane. So we don't have accents, we don't have rules in this respect. So I gave you one already. So the 2-syllable words where it's the same word, export and export, there you have an example of a rule, but sadly they're few and far between. So what do we do about that? Well, let's start by having a little quiz. Okay, I can hear you breathing in shock and horror. More of the squiggly lines, more of the phonemes. Now, what I've done is the following. I have got a transcribed word on the left, and what I want you to do is to write down what you think the actual word is on the right. Now, you'll notice in the transcribed word in phonemes on the left, I've included the marks for emphasis. So the first word, I won't say what it is, you're going to tell me, or hopefully you'll guess what it is, has emphasis on its second syllable. In the second word, it's on the first syllable. In the third word, it's on the third syllable. Okay, so you can see where the emphasis is going to be. Don't worry about the emphasis at this moment, although if you work it out, fantastic. See if you can work out what the words are that go in the corresponding box on the right-hand side. And notice if they are on the same level. You don't have to mix and match, all right? The first word begins with an A, the second with a B, and so on. Take a few seconds, and then I'll show you the answers. It's not a test. If you got any of those right, well done. If you didn't, don't worry about it. It's all a learning curve. So all of this will become easier and easier as time goes on. But let's have a look. There you've got it. Another brilliant, aviation, energetic, and immigration. Okay? If I was genuinely trying to teach you how to do these things, we'd start with very small words like cat, dog, and hat. That's not the case. What we're looking at here is word emphasis. Now, I'm assuming that at least some of the words, if not all of the words on the right-hand side, are familiar to you. I'm talking to people who are taking very difficult exams. You're preparing for high-level tests, academic tests. So these words shouldn't be unfamiliar to you. Okay, another brilliant, aviation, energetic, and immigration. All right, so moving on. Look where the stress is. Look at where the stress is in each of these words in the transcribed word on the left. Okay, now I've just read them to you, so this won't be such a difficult exercise for you. But again, same thing as I mentioned before, underline, circle, or indicate where the stress is in each of those words. All right, this is an exercise that you ought to be doing with any new vocabulary that you're learning. Okay, another, brilliant, aviation. By the way, notice brilliant. It's not brilliant, brilliant. It's brilliant. Aviation, energetic, immigration. All right? So there you are. You've got the emphasized word. Again, chances of remembering what these words are once you've gone through this kind of process is greatly increased. So this is not a trick question. I've got a list of words here in black. How would you pronounce these words? And where would you put the emphasis in each of them? All right? Take a few seconds to look at them. Again, read them aloud if you can, if you're feeling brave. Well, let's have a look. This is quite interesting. You may have said any one of the two possibilities. Here we've got a list of words which can be and are pronounced in slightly different ways, but they are both absolutely legitimate. So controversy can also be controversy. Kilometer may also be pronounced kilometer. Aluminium might be pronounced aluminum. Divulge could be divulge. Secretary could also be secretary, so a 4-syllable word or a 3-syllable word. So same emphasis, but fewer syllables. Homage or homage. Advertisement or advertisement. Now, You'll notice on the right-hand side, I put a group of words. I'm not going to say anything about who says what, but if you say aluminum, you're effectively eliminating the I. Now, the I is still there, you just don't say it. The same when you say secretary, you're effectively eliminating the A, only in your pronunciation, not when you spell it. So just because you say secretary doesn't mean all of a sudden it's acceptable to write it without the letter A. And the same with advertisement. Tis, not ties. It's not advertisement, it's advertisement. Okay? There are so many pronunciation inconsistencies in the English language. We have written books and books about it, and even the poem, The Chaos, which I hope you actually did see. Look, T-I-S-E, like rise, okay? R-I-S-E, rise. T-I-S-E should be ties, but it's not. It's in this word, we make it tis. Advertisement, okay? Advertisement, advertisement, okay? Right, let's go on. Pronunciation comes down to where you come from. Where do you come from? Are you British? Are you American? Are you Australian? Are you Canadian? Wherever you come from, you can have different kinds of pronunciation. Okay, so I come from the UK originally. I now live in Australia. Plenty of people don't. People come from different backgrounds. And I would also say this, and I will probably continue to mention this week after week, just because you don't come from a native speaking English environment, it does not mean that the way that you speak English is not legitimate. That's not the case. But it also doesn't mean that you need to go around trying to sound like somebody from England or sound like somebody from America, all right? What you need to do is make sure that the way that you're speaking, the way that you're pronouncing words is as clear as it can possibly be, all right? You need to be clear, you need to be understood, and so it's not about mimicking my accent or mimicking an American accent or whatever it might be. It is about doing your best to pronounce accurately, all right? It also depends how you were brought up or where you were brought up. If your parents said it this way, then you might say it this way. I know somebody who says mountain. I think it's insane. This is an educated person who says mountain. I don't say mountain, I don't say fountain, and I don't say theatre, which is another thing that I've heard people say. Educated, intelligent people, they say theatre. Look, there are numerous examples of ways in which words can be pronounced differently, but remain within the parameters of, okay, that's fine, you just say it differently. Okay, sometimes. Nevertheless, there is such thing as incorrect pronunciation, and this is especially important for test takers, because it means that when you sit down to do your test, especially when you have to do a test on a computer, it means that you've got to be aware of what is incorrect, because it's not just, well, we just say it that way. That's frequently not the case. You do have to have certain standards, and there is such thing as saying it wrong. Now, here we've got a few examples of how a native speaker might say something, but it is not right. An example is nuclear. A lot of people say nuclear. Okay, that's wrong. You will often hear people say often. So they kill the, they do pronounce the letter that is there, the t, and in fact it's not, it should be often rather than often. But again, you'll hear people say it often, very often, all right? Supposedly becomes supposably, prostate becomes prostrate. By the way, prostrate's another word entirely. Specific becomes pacific. Ask becomes arcs. That happens a lot in America, happens in the UK as well, arcs. And cutlery becomes cutlery, all right? So there are things that native speakers say that are wrong, and you will hear it and you go, but hang on a second, so-and-so says often, or so-and-so says supposedly. Just because people say it doesn't make it right, all right? There are standards in English, and you will be judged against those standards when you're speaking in your test. There are examples also of, and these are examples of things I've heard, and the list could go on and on. There are things that a native speaker of English would never say. So economy is one example, Wednesday, February, Brisbane, facility, and transference, okay? Emphasis is all wrong in these words. So you'd need to go back and make sure that you are in fact emphasizing the word in the right way. Where there are two possibilities, in the dictionary it will often say, so if there's a difference between US pronunciation and UK pronunciation, even including difference in emphasis, it will say that, okay? But please make sure that you're doing something which somebody does say, meaning somebody meaning any kind of native speaker, standard speaker of English would say, all right? It is Brisbane, facility, February, Wednesday, economy, transference, all right? So here are a few tips for you for getting word stress and word emphasis right. The first thing you can do, as I mentioned before, break a word down into its syllables. When you've got it in its constituent parts, it's going to be much easier for you. Then use a transcript, if you can, to see which syllable is stressed. That word is stressed, by the way. So wherever that little dash at the top is, that's the syllable that you will stress, all right? Use our app on your phone, E2 Pronounce. It's very useful because you can say the word and then it will tell you if you're saying it correctly. You can also listen to the word being pronounced on any number of online sites for free. So dictionary.com is an example of that. It's perfectly good. I think in standard American English in dictionary.com, all right? But you will hear, you know, a perfectly correct American English version of a word being said for you. And then go and contextualize the word, read it aloud and record yourself doing that. The more that you actually work with a word, write a word, produce a word, say a word, the more likely you are to remember that word and it will stick in your mind. If you don't, then the words just stay out there and you know you can try and learn the word list that we send you, that academic collocation word list, and you'll be deeply frustrated because it's like, oh my God, there's 4,500 words and I've got no idea. Contextualize it. No one's expecting you to remember 4,500 words, but if you can sit down over the period of a month and commit 10, 11, 12 collocations to memory, that's very good. And using this method is going to be better for you. So if you're a paid user, you can download the E2 Pronounce app. If you are not, well, we look forward to welcoming you to the family. Now time for your homework. I'm not going to say these words. Please do me a favor, write these words down. There are 8 words which you may or may not know. Just write them down first, and then I'll tell you what I want you to do. Okay. Right. Okay. What do I want you to do? Quite simply, follow our method. All right. I'd like you to commit those words to memory, learn about how they're meant to be said, contextualize them, put them into a sentence, do exactly what it is that I've asked you to do. Okay. Start using our 5 tips to improve your recall and your ability to pronounce the words. All right. So they're the words. All right. That's your homework. Upgrade now if you haven't done so already. And I look forward to seeing you for the next workshop next week. Okay. Have a good week. And yeah, I'll see you again later. Bye-bye.